The private jet stood on the tarmac like a sleek metal predator, its engines emitting a low, constant growl that vibrated through Sophia's bones. She counted her breaths, in through the nose, out through the mouth, the way the therapist had taught her before Billionaire had forbidden her sessions. The diamond bracelet he'd clasped around her wrist that morning felt heavier than chains, its glittering surface catching the fluorescent airport lights with every forced, graceful movement of her arm. "Keep up, darling," Billionaire murmured, his fingers tightening imperceptibly on her elbow. The warning in his voice was as clear as if he'd shouted it. His Rolex glinted under the terminal lights, a $200,000 reminder of the power that made him untouchable. "The cameras love us." Sophia tilted her head in what she hoped looked like affectionate deference, letting her carefully styled dark hair fall across the side of her face where the bruise was still healing. The foundation she'd applied that morning felt like a mask, thick and suffocating. She could still hear his voice from last night. "You'll learn to behave before we reach Dubai, one way or another." The airport buzzed around them, a symphony of rolling suitcases, boarding announcements in 3 languages, and the constant hum of human movement. None of the rushing travelers noticed how her free hand trembled. None saw how her eyes darted to every exit sign, every security officer, every potential chance. They only saw the beautiful young wife of Elias Billionaire, tech mogul and media darling, strolling through first-class check-in like royalty. "Mr. Billionaire, always a pleasure." The check-in agent's obsequious smile made Sophia's stomach turn. "Your usual suite is prepared, of course. The pilot has been briefed on your preferred flight path." Billionaire's laugh was warm and practiced. "Marco, you spoil us." "Sophia, darling, show Marco your appreciation." She felt the eyes on her before she even parted her lips. The cameras, the other passengers, Billionaire's ever-present security team, all watching to ensure she performed perfectly. Her smile ached as she murmured her thanks, the words tasting like ash. As they moved toward security, Sophia's pulse quickened. This was her last chance before they passed into the restricted area, before the gilded cage of the private jet, before Dubai. Her fingers brushed against the boarding pass in her pocket, the one she'd deliberately creased and folded until a corner had torn loose. The scrap of paper burned against her fingertips, like a live coal. She'd practiced the motion 100 times in the bathroom that morning. Quick, subtle, invisible. A commotion at a nearby gate drew Billionaire's attention. Some minor altercation between a passenger and staff. His grip loosened just enough. Sophia's breath hitched as she let the torn edge of the boarding pass slip from her fingers, her hastily scrawled message facing upward, for one terrifying second before it fluttered toward the polished floor. Help! The word looked so small, so insignificant. Would anyone even— A polished black shoe came down on the paper, obscuring it from view. Sophia's gaze traveled up the crisp security uniform to meet a pair of dark, assessing eyes. The badge read, Rahim V., Security Supervisor. For one endless moment, the world narrowed to that single point of contact. Then the world came crashing back as Billionaire returned, his expression shifting from mild annoyance to sharp suspicion. "Is there a problem?" Rahim's boot didn't move. "Routine additional screening, sir. New protocols for private flights." His voice was calm, professional, giving nothing away. "If you'll follow me." Sophia's heart hammered so violently she feared it might be audible. Was this salvation? Or simply a different kind of danger? The walk to the private screening room took less than a minute, but felt like an eternity. Billionaire's presence behind her was a physical weight, his displeasure radiating in the tense set of his shoulders. She could practically hear the calculations running through his mind. Which officials to call, which favors to cash in, how to minimize this inconvenience. The screening room door clicked shut behind them with finality. Rahim turned, his expression unreadable, as he finally lifted his foot from the scrap of paper. Sophia's breath caught as he discreetly palmed it, his eyes never leaving Billionaire's face. "Now," Rahim said calmly, "let's see what we have here." The private screening room smelled of antiseptic and stale coffee. Sophia sat perfectly still, her back straight, her hands folded in her lap, the picture of elegant compliance. But beneath the silk of her blouse, sweat trickled down her spine. Rahim stood near the door, his posture relaxed, but his eyes sharp. He had slipped the note into his pocket without a word, and now Billionaire paced like a caged tiger, his polished Oxfords clicking against the linoleum. "This is ridiculous," Billionaire snapped, flashing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Do you know who I am? Rahim didn't flinch. Protocol, sir. Random selection. He turned to Sophia, his voice softening just enough. Ma'am, if you'll come with me for a moment. Billionaire's hand shot out, gripping her wrist. She stays with me. Sophia's breath hitched. His fingers were a vice, pressing into the bruises he'd left the night before. Rahim's gaze flicked to the way her skin whitened under Billionaire's grip. Then, smoothly, he reached for his radio. We need a female officer for a pat-down. A beat of silence. Billionaire's jaw tightened, but he couldn't argue, not without drawing more attention. Sophia stood on trembling legs as a stern-faced woman in uniform entered. This is it, she thought. My only chance. The female officer, her badge read Lopez, guided Sophia behind a privacy screen. The moment they were out of earshot, Sophia's composure shattered. Please, she whispered, her voice raw. He's taking me to Dubai. I won't come back. Officer Lopez's expression didn't change, but her grip on Sophia's arm gentled. Are you hurt? Sophia hesitated, then rolled up her sleeve. The bruises were dark against her pale skin, fingerprints from where Billionaire had dragged her to bed last night after she refused to pack. Lopez's lips thinned. She pulled out a small notepad. Tell me quickly. The words spilled out in a rush. The forced marriage, the isolation, the way Billionaire's lawyers had made sure no one would believe her. He owns people here, Sophia breathed. If you report this, he'll bury it. Lopez glanced toward the door, where Rahim was keeping Billionaire distracted with meaningless paperwork. Then she made a decision. Stay here, she murmured, then stepped out and nodded at Rahim. A silent exchange passed between them. Rahim's jaw set. Sir, Rahim said smoothly, your carry-on needs to be rescanned. A glitch in the system. Billionaire's patience snapped. Enough, I'll have your job for this. Rahim didn't blink. Of course, sir, but until then the scanner won't clear you. A flicker of uncertainty crossed Billionaire's face. He couldn't risk a scene, not with investors watching. With a sharp exhale, he yanked his bag onto the belt. That was all the time they needed. Officer Lopez returned to Sophia and pressed a slip of paper into her hand. A boarding pass for a commercial flight, leaving in 20 minutes. Gate C12. Run! Sophia's heart pounded. What about, we'll handle him. Go! Sophia moved like a ghost through the terminal, her head down, her pulse roaring in her ears. Every second felt like an eternity. Would Billionaire realize? Would security stop her? Then, over the PA system, Billionaire's voice, cold with fury. Lock down the airport! Now! Her blood turned to ice. A hand grabbed her arm. She whirled, ready to fight. But it was Rahim. This way! He hissed, pulling her toward a service elevator. They're closing the gates! The elevator doors slid shut just as shouting erupted down the hall. Rahim's hands were steady as he handed her a passport. It's clean. You're Maya Rodriguez now. Sophia stared at him. Why are you doing this? For the first time, Rahim's mask slipped. Because someone should have done it for my sister. The elevator dinged. Gate C12 was in sight. But as they stepped out, 2 security officers blocked their path. Mr. Billionaire wants her detained, one said. Rahim stepped in front of Sophia. Over my dead body. Rain lashed against the safe house windows like nails scraping glass. Sophia, no, Maya now, paced the cramped apartment, her fingers worrying the edge of the fake passport Rahim had given her. 3 weeks since the airport. 3 weeks of jumping between motels, buses. Finally, this dingy Brooklyn walk-up that smelled of mildew and old cigarettes. Rahim entered, shaking water from his jacket. The cut above his eyebrow from the airport confrontation had scabbed over, but his knuckles were still bruised. He's put $1 million bounty on you, he said quietly, tossing a burner phone onto the rickety table. Your face is on every dark web forum. Sophia's reflection in the fogged mirror looked like a stranger. Hollow cheeks, hair dyed mousy brown, the glittering wife of Elias Billionaire erased. I should never have dragged you into this. Rahim's laugh was bitter. I walked into it, eyes open. He pulled a whiskey bottle from his duffel, took a swig. My sister Nadia? She married a man like yours. Smaller bank account, same rotten soul. A pause. They found her in the Hudson. The silence between them thickened. Sophia reached for the bottle. Their fingers brushed. A click from the hallway. Too quiet. Rahim's body went rigid. The hunters close. In the door exploded inward before Sophia could scream. Black-clad figures swarmed the room. Billionaire's private security. Faces obscured by tactical masks. A fist connected with Rahim's temple, sending him crashing into the wall. Sophia scrambled backward, overturning the table, reaching for nothing. A gloved hand fisted in her hair, yanking her upright. Mr. Billionaire misses you. A voice hissed in her ear. Then, a gunshot. The grip on her hair loosened. The masked man slumped, a red bloom spreading across his chest. Rahim stood in the kitchen doorway, pistol smoking in his hand, his other arm hanging useless at his side, dislocated. "Go!" he roared. Sophia didn't hesitate. 5 years later, the auction house glittered with Manhattan's elite, champagne flutes catching the light like diamonds. At the podium, the auctioneer adjusted his glasses. "Next lot, the former Billionaire estate in the Hamptons." A murmur rippled through the crowd. From the shadows of her private box, Sophia watched through the one-way glass. The scars on her wrist where Billionaire's watch had cut her were hidden beneath a bespoke Valentino sleeve. The mousy brown hair had grown out, replaced by a sleek platinum bob. Elena Martov. That was the name on her invitations now. The Russian oil heiress who'd appeared out of nowhere 2 years ago, buying up Billionaire's debts piece by piece. Her assistant leaned in. "He's here." Sophia's pulse didn't even flicker. Down in the crowd, Elias Billionaire sat stiffly in his usual front-row seat, his once impeccable suit slightly loose on his frame. The vultures had started circling when his empire began to crumble. The SEC investigations, the leaked documents showing offshore accounts, the wives who suddenly found their voices. Sophia tapped her tablet. The auctioneer's earpiece crackled. "We have a bid of 90 million. Billionaire's head snapped up. Sophia smiled. The private elevator to Billionaire's penthouse required a keycard. Sophia used hers. The doors opened to chaos. Moving boxes stacked haphazardly. A single suitcase open on the marble floor. Billionaire stood at the window, staring at the city that had once been his playground. "I wondered when you'd come," he said without turning. Sophia let her heels click against the floor. "You look tired, Elias." He turned. The years hadn't been kind. Deep grooves around his mouth. His famous charm hardened into something brittle. "Elena Martov," he mused. "I should have known. That mouth of yours was always your tell." She circled him, a shark scenting blood. "You shouldn't have let them dislocate Rahim's arm. He was very motivated during recovery." Billionaire's laugh was hollow. "That security guard? Christ, Sophia, you really bought his loyalty with what, exactly?" She tilted her head. "Oh, wait. Basic human decency. You wouldn't understand." A flicker of movement behind her. Sophia didn't flinch as 2 of Billionaire's remaining bodyguards stepped into the room. "You shouldn't have come alone," Billionaire sneered. Sophia checked her watch. "Who said I did?" The windows exploded inward. Glass rained down in lethal shards as the tactical team repelled through the broken windows. Billionaire staggered back, his face lacerated by flying fragments, his expensive Italian shoes crunching over the glittering wreckage of his own home. Sophia didn't move. She stood perfectly still at the center of the chaos, her hands clasped loosely in front of her, watching him with the calm of a woman who had already won. "Interpol!" Billionaire spat blood onto the marble floor. "You think this changes anything? My lawyers will—" "Your lawyers are currently being arrested," Sophia said. She tapped her tablet, and the massive media screen on the wall flickered to life. Live footage of federal agents raiding his corporate offices in Zurich, London, Dubai. Funny what happens when someone leaks 15 years of hidden transactions. One of the bodyguards lunged. A sniper's bullet took him in the knee before his hand touched his weapon. Sophia didn't even blink. "You bitch," Billionaire breathed. "I made you." "No," Sophia said softly. "You broke me, and I rebuilt myself stronger." Behind her, a familiar silhouette stepped through the smoke. Rahim, his left arm still slightly stiff from the old injury, a pistol holstered at his hip. "Time's up," he said. The arrest played out across every major network. Elias Billionaire, once untouchable, now handcuffed and bleeding on his own marble floors. The charges scrolled endlessly. Money laundering, tax evasion, human trafficking, conspiracy to commit murder. But Sophia wasn't watching. She stood on the rooftop of a different building, the wind tugging at her coat, staring at the city that had once been his kingdom. Rahim joined her, handing her a coffee. "He'll try to weasel out of it. He won't succeed," she said. And he didn't. The trial lasted 6 months. The sentence, life without parole, took 6 minutes. 1 year later, the invitation arrived at Rahim's modest apartment. Heavy cardstock, embossed lettering. "Sophia Kaur requests the pleasure of your company at the opening of the Nadia Foundation." He hadn't seen her since the trial. The foundation's headquarters were airy and bright, nothing like the dark opulence of Billionaire's world. Sophia stood near the entrance, her hair loose around her shoulders. wearing a simple linen dress instead of armor. "You kept your name," Rahim said. She smiled. "I earned it back." A silence stretched between them, comfortable. "Then there's something I never gave you," Rahim said. He reached into his pocket and unfolded a creased, stained slip of paper. "Help." Sophia's breath caught. "I think you're past needing this now," he said. She took it, her fingers brushing his. "Maybe, but I'll keep it anyway." And when she kissed him, the cameras didn't flash. The world didn't watch. For the first time in her life, Sophia was free.